Welcome to Percussion Methods. Today we're talking about bass drum. Stand behind the bass drum and put your foot on the rail that goes straight out from the bottom of the frame. If your bass drum doesn't have a frame with that rail there, you can use something like the bottom of a snare drum stand to put your foot on top of. I'll often see percussionists stand right in front of the head, and they have to invent all kinds of really interesting grips and techniques in order to play the instrument. Set your music stand in front of the bass drum at a height where it's easy to see the conductor. Once you have the drum in place, make sure to lock the wheels so that the instrument doesn't roll away from you as you're playing it. Standing behind the drum, you can use a sideways German grip to play the instrument. You can check out my German grip video for more information, but in essence, we're gonna put our thumb flat on the stick, curve around our index finger, and then put the back fingers on. There's gonna be a difference in angle between your forearm and the stick. You can see the stick is going straight up here, but my forearm is actually going out at an angle. That's how I can get my back fingers on the mallet. If I try and straighten everything out, my back three fingers come off the stick and I don't have as much control. To get a warm, full sound, play just below center. The center of the head is actually a dead spot. You're gonna hinge with your wrist back and out of the drum, accelerate into the head, and then instead of coming straight out, you're actually gonna lift your mallet up. This makes what I call the L stroke on bass drum as we move into the head and then bring the mallet up. We bring the mallet up into the air after we play because it's a visual signal to the conductor, the audience, and our other section mates that yes, we played the bass drum, hopefully at the right time. The vertical stick lift also visually complements the sound of the drum. This instrument has a gorgeous, long, dark sustain, and visually we want to match that. Here's a demonstration of a single note. There are lots of musical situations where we need to dampen the ring of the instrument. Remember, bass drum has two large heads that are resonating. I'm going to dampen the batter head by using my knee, and I'm going to dampen the resonant head by putting my hand on it. That looks like this. If you only dampen the batter head with your hand or a towel, the resonant head is going to continue to ring and you're not going to get a quick cutoff. If you're playing many notes in a row that need a shorter or more articulate sound, such as during a march, you can leave your knee and your hand on the heads to dry up the sound. So I've got my knee against the batter head, I've got my hand with fingers separated against the resonant head, and it's gonna dry up the sound quite a bit. This muting technique gives you a lot of control over note length and articulation. For example, when you're playing a roll on concert bass drum, get some mallets that are designed for that, and take your hands and separate them and go closer out toward the rim of the drum. The easiest way to play a roll is to first tilt the drum at roughly a 45-degree angle. Move out from the center, and you're just going to use German grip in and out of the head like this. These are single stroke rolls like the ones we use on timpani and keyboard percussion, not buzz rolls. If you press into the head, it's going to dampen the resonance. If you're a percussionist that has a solid traditional grip, say from marching snare drum, you can also leave the drum in a vertical orientation and play with that grip, like this. Whichever way you play your rolls, if you need to dampen the sound at the release, your left hand is going to need to go to the resonant head quite quickly. Here's what that looks like. Dampening after a roll is one situation where putting a black towel on the batter head can be helpful. This is just a standard soft black hand towel, and I'm using a large spring clip to attach to the rim. These clips are very inexpensive. You can find them at your local hardware store. I like to fold the towel in half before I clip it. That way some of these harder stitched edges won't rattle against the batter head. In addition to drying up the sound of the instrument, this also helps give you a quicker cutoff at the end of a roll. You might be able to tell that the batter head cuts off fairly quickly, but the resonant head continues to ring until I put my hand on it. I usually do not like using towel dampening on a bass drum because the batter head resonance isn't as full and I don't have as much control over the dampening. But attaching a towel can be useful in two situations that come to mind. The first is when you have a quick cutoff following a roll, and the second is if you need to dry up the sound if you're moving from bass drum quickly to another instrument and you don't have time to put your knee or hand on the instrument to mute it. As usual, we put our mallets and other implements on a music stand covered in a black towel. That way we can pick them up and set them down without making extraneous noise. We can also position this music stand wherever we need, just in case we have a fast mallet change. For single notes, I like a mallet like this one. This is a Firth Tom Gower TG3, also known as the Tom Gower Molto bass drum mallet. It's got a medium weight, a nice grip section here, and this elongated head which gives you more surface area as you strike the drum. This mallet produces a really warm, full sound without it being super heavy. For rolling mallets, you want a slightly smaller matched pair. I like these because they still have a nice amount of surface area. They're a little bit lighter and feel really nicely balanced in the hands. These are the Firth Tom Gower TG4s. If you need to purchase a bass drum, I would recommend an instrument like this one, which is 36 inches in diameter. Most bass drums have a shell depth of 16 or 18 inches. This one has an extra large depth at 20 inches, which really helps it project and give it a dark tone. Drums made out of mahogany generally give you the darkest, warmest sound. This particular instrument is made out of ply maple, which gives it a very consistent tone even at very loud dynamic levels. I really like the Remo NuSkyn Symphonic bass drum head. It has the warm tonal characteristics of a calfskin head, but isn't susceptible to weather changes, which can make a natural skin head get much looser or tighter depending on the humidity. When you're not using them, wrap your bass drum mallets in plastic like this. Similar to timpani mallets, you shouldn't touch them because oils from your fingers will cause the felt to deteriorate. Wrapping them in plastic means that if you put them in a bag with other sticks or equipment, it's not going to pick apart the felt. For your rolling pair of mallets, you can put them in a larger bag and give them a twist, and then they're good to go. Be especially careful when you're rolling an instrument like bass drum through doors. These hoops are made out of wood, and if it smacks into a doorway, it could cause them to break. Normally, we play with soft felt mallets on bass drum, but of course you can experiment with any number of different implements to change up the sound. For something really articulate and pointed, you might use a marimba mallet. You could even use soft rubber mallets. Brushes give you a really cool texture on bass drum. Timpani mallets can give things like rolls a really light and ethereal sound. You can get specially designed wooden mallets for bass drum or use wooden timpani mallets, but I wouldn't recommend using a wooden drumstick since the small tip of it could put dents in the heads. And of course, you don't want to use anything like a brass bell mallet or a really hard xylophone mallet on your nice concert bass drum. One particularly cool sound that is so fun to play is a friction roll on the batter head. This is really similar to playing a thumb, also known as a finger or a friction roll on tambourine.